Today I'd like to talk about vibrato. I've noticed these days there are performers on classical guitar who try to put vibrato on every single note, which I find a little weird because you can't vibrato a chord unless you want it to be out of tune. Anyways, part of the legacy of vibrato comes from uh, the early stages of recording. So in the early stages of recording, there was a lot of scratchiness. There was a needle, and then there was a wax cylinder, and while the music got picked up, there was just the sheer noise of the technology. So when orchestra musicians heard this back, they had to figure out how to make a difference between the scratches of the violin's bow on the strings and the scratches of the needle on the surface of the cylinder. So they added vibrato. So now we had scratches with vibrato, that was strings, and then we had scratches just with scratches, and that was just the noise of the technology. The curious thing for me is that the vibrato became a thing that we use all the time. So one of the things string players stopped doing was using open strings because it can't vibrato on an open string. That legacy carried over into the guitar. Don't use open strings. But going back to the real reason, which was you want the scratch to be a meaningful scratch. So I studied at university, and when I was at university, one of the great texts for practicing was a flute book. And in this flute book, it talked about controlling your vibrato. So you'd have a fast vibrato, a slow vibrato, or a vibrato that might start slow and move fast, or start fast and move slow. But the important thing was that you controlled it. So I did all those exercises, practicing my vibrato in different ways. And many years later, I came to have friends who came out of pop music. Inevitably, especially if they were used to playing electric guitars, which regulates the sound to a huge degree, they warm the sound with their left hand. And it could be vibrato, but it was just this instinctive weight that they had. They had strong hands, and they used that left hand to sweeten the sound somehow. It wasn't always vibrato. It could be just the weight that they put into the string, could be just little inflections, but they made it expressive. And that was because they were expressive people. When you have a regulated instrument, you have to have some way of making the sound personal. Not vibrato necessarily, but a way of warming the sound with the left hand. So, as I said early on, you can't vibrato every note, and if you're a classical guitar player, you're playing chords. You want to vibrato one note, make the chord sound out of tune? That's a little bit weird. So I suggest you choose where you want to put your vibrato, and you have to have a reason for doing it, just like you have to have a reason for doing everything. Thank you.